Okay, good evening, everybody. Good evening. If I could have your attention, we'll begin. Thank you for joining us tonight for this FAFSA presentation. And for those of you online as well, thank you. And our brothers and sisters in Christ from Michigan Lutheran Seminaries are joining us online as well. So tonight we have Professor Crone. She is the Financial Wellness Coordinator at MLC, and she's going to share with us a lot of important information as you get closer to the point of college admissions and financial aid and that whole world. And that's a really cool part of your life to be moving into right now. It can also be maybe you might have some little anxiety, a little anxious about it. Between what you hear tonight, between admissions counselors at the colleges, universities you decide to attend, and I'm also available to help. We want to be able to answer all those questions so that you can be excited about what's coming next and how you're going to use the Lord's gifts that He has blessed you with as you move into your post-high school plans. With that, let's begin the presentation. Could we give Professor Crone a warm welcome?
Thanks so much. I have been working in financial aid since 2008. I've been at MLC for the past 10 years. So this information, although it's kind of steadily stays the same, it's also the government that we're talking about when it's financial aid form. So things can change. So those parents that are watching, if you've been through this process before, there are a few shifts and changes from last year to this year, and so I will kind of highlight some of those as well. Am I correct in assuming that you are seniors? Yes. Okay, so you're right on the precipice of needing to do this form. That's good for me to know. A little bit of my background too. I have worked a lot of different jobs. I've done a lot of different things, which has been so beneficial in my role as financial wellness coordinator because I get to talk to students, obviously at MLC, who are ministry minded and on that path, but also those of you who really don't know what to do. Please feel free afterwards if you have questions. Like I said, I've had a lot of different careers before the one that I have now. And realistically, the information is just to prepare you for the next phase, whatever that phase may be, right? As long as you're taking the Lord with you in that phase, right? All right, so this is just an overview of what we're going to look into tonight. We're going to review really in a little bit of detail the actual application process for the FAFSA. It can be a little scary, but it is very much simplified from what it used to be. So if you've heard horror stories, you can realistically finish it in 15 minutes, I promise you. But you do need to have your documentation kind of ready to go. So this is kind of where we're going to go. I'm going to have to reference because I forget everything that's up there. All right, so FAFSA, what does it stand for? Free Application for Federal Student Aid. So this is a free form. Years ago, there was a lot of problems with people going to other websites that they would help them do the FAFSA for a fee. So if anytime they are asking you for something, double check the URL because it should just be studentaid.gov where you're going. But this is the application that you will need regardless of what higher institution you are considering, okay? You can put multiple schools. There's a spot for you to say where you're thinking of going and that school's code, or you'll look it up by city and state, and you can put all of the schools that you're thinking of attending in the FAFSA form, and then each school will get a copy of that, okay? So that's an important step. Just blast it out to wherever you think you might be going. This is available October 1st. So that is when the first time you can complete the form. That doesn't necessarily mean you need to be waiting and hoping and getting in there on October 1st. We'll talk about this. There is some strategy with when you complete the FAFSA, but that is the soonest that it will become available. Some schools have a priority deadline, and if you get your application in after that priority deadline, that could shift the different amounts of aid that you receive. For Martin Luther College, it is April 15th, tax day. That is always when the financial aid information is due. But even then, we will still accept your application if you're trying to figure things out and it takes a little bit longer than that. It's fine. But for some schools, it absolutely can determine what aid you receive based on that deadline. So please be paying attention to whatever schools you're looking at, those deadlines. To complete the FAFSA, everyone a student and a parent must have an FSA ID. This is like your signature. So you will sign up for one, and if you notice it says create an account, you need your full name, the name that is on your birth certificate, and you will need your full social security number and your date of birth. And it is extremely, extremely important that you get those numbers in correctly. We've had many situations where students will transpose some of the numbers in their social security number when they're setting up this account, and it is very difficult to get it fixed because this is a governmental website. So just make sure, if you don't already have it memorized, how many have your social memorized? Very good. You will need that number in college multiple times. So start storing it in, this is your assigned memory work, right? Is your social security number. You will need that. Parents also will sign up for one of these FSA IDs. Now, parents, you only need to do this the one time. It's not a different login for every student. It is one. So you will use the same FSA ID for each time you fill out the parent section, okay? I should also mention, if you have questions at any time, please stop me, because if you're thinking that question, someone else probably is too. All right, so you'll put in your information. This is something that you can do before you do the FAFSA. So at any point, you can go out and you can create your FSA ID, your username and password, even before you're doing the FAFSA. It will simplify it because it does require going through it has to get verified. And so once it is, it's really fast. So it might not be a bad idea to just set that up early. Once you either log in or create that username, then you will go through the process. So students, really, you are the starters of this process. So you will fill in your information. You will say you are a student, then you'll fill in all of your stuff. It takes you through different questions and videos. It's like these helps. You can certainly watch them. If you do, it will not be 15 minutes to complete your FAFSA. That will add on time. But if you do want to watch it, but I'm going to tell you what you need to know, so you can certainly bypass that unless you have questions. This is probably, dependent status is probably the number one question that we get in the financial aid office. Well, I'm not claiming my student on our taxes. Aren't they dependent? Why am I including my parental information? I'm not even paying for their college. Doesn't matter. The government doesn't care. This is the government's definition of what a dependent versus an independent student is. And you can see it's very specific. So typically, most students coming out of high school are going to be dependent, which means you must put your parents' information on the FAFSA, okay? It doesn't matter if they are helping pay for college or not. The government doesn't care, they require it. We had a student who is like kind of a second career. He took a couple gap years, has been living out in an apartment, still had to use his parents' information. I know, it's kind of wacky. Unless you would wait until you're turning 24. There you go. Then you can put just your information. But most of you probably just want to like power through so that you can get your career going. All right, so this happened, I think, maybe 3 years ago on the FAFSA. You started having to invite your parent as a contributor, which is kind of goofy because most of the time you're going to be doing it together at the same time, but it's fine. Last year, you had to know your parents' date of birth, and social security number. Isn't that convenient? Because you don't even know your own most of the time, right? They have changed that, thankfully. Sometimes they actually get feedback from the financial aid offices across the country, and this time they listened, and now you just have to put in your parents' email address. So you'll put in your parents' email address, and it will go to them, and then they will put in their information. Parents, you will either log in with that FSA ID that you created, or you will create one at that time if you haven't already. So this is kind of what it looks like. You'll just say, this is the parent's email, send invite, and then the parent, this is then what, sorry, I'm gonna stop right here. This is what the student sees. It's this pending submission. You've done all you can do, students, at this point. You've already entered your financial information, which I'm gonna show from the parent's perspective, but you have the same information on yours. And it's just showing you, okay, I can't submit it yet because you still need your contributor's information. Parent, then this is what you see. You will get an email and it will say, hey, you've been invited to fill out information on a FAFSA. And then you'll accept that invitation, and then you'll see those slides on the right. You will either log in using that FSA ID, or you will create your FSA ID at that time. This is a really important point for parents, as if you are married filing joint, only one parent needs that FSA ID. Okay, so not both parents would need to be a contributor to the FAFSA. If, however, you are married filing separately, then both parents would need to be a contributor and add their information to the FAFSA. Okay? It's really important to know, like, if you are in a family where your parents are divorced, who do I put on there? Which parent? It's the parent who provides more than 50% of your support, which typically, if you are in this situation, it's the parent whose address is on your driver's license. Most often that is the parent. But if you're really unsure, I can help talk you through that. But you do need to put whichever parent is providing more support. And if your parent is remarried, you need to include your step-parent's information. Just like back here, this step, your parent would then put your step-parent's date of birth in there as the other parent on the FAFSA form. Okay? Questions about that? Okay. The financial information, so they started doing this many years ago. It's prior year. What does that mean? It just means if you're doing the FAFSA for 2026, that means you're using 2024 tax information. They want to make sure that everyone has filed, and even if you have an extension, your taxes are complete. Because they transition to now they are pulling your data directly from the IRS, and you have to actually give them consent. That's what that box on the bottom. We're securely importing your data. So this FTI, the federal tax information, which I think is on the next slide. So they are going to import that information directly into the FAFSA. Sometimes we see families that still manually key it in, and then inevitably those are the files that are selected for verification, which I will talk to you about in just a moment. But pretty much it says if you don't provide consent, your student will not get aid. That's pretty much what the fine print says. So you pretty much have to do this if you want to be considered for financial aid. Students, you have the same thing. So if you didn't file taxes in 2024, no problem, but you'll still give them consent. They'll go out, see that you didn't file, and that's what gets reported on your FAFSA. So both students and parents are having to give this consent. Does that make sense? All right. I mentioned if you key it in manually, you might be selected for verification. So a certain number of files randomly are by the government. Schools can also verify you if they're like, this doesn't seem quite right. And what that means is now you have to go through another layer of providing additional information. So usually you have to give your tax transcripts, you have to fill out a verification form. It's not a horrible thing, but it is clunky and it takes time. So if we can avoid it by just streamlining things, by pulling information in from the IRS, it will save on time for you and for the financial aid office. Financial assets. This one is as of the date you complete the FAFSA. So students, this would be like your savings accounts, what you have in checking. They're going to ask you that, right? And so for students, they're going to say anything that you have on hand, 20% of that should be able to go to college. So if you, I know, right? If you are planning on buying a car for college or a bigger purchase, you may want to make your purchase and then fill out your FAFSA, because otherwise they're going to think that the money that you have for that other thing is available for college. Is that clear? So that's why I said timing matters. Parents, it's no different for you. Let's say that you are expecting a big windfall from, like, I don't know, something. I don't even know, but some kind of thing that you know that it's pending. So just be mindful that if it's in your bank account as of the day that you submit the FAFSA, you need to report that. Okay? Yes. Yes, it does. I will just tell you what happens. The government says if it's in a student's account, they can use it for college, and so they will look and they will set 20% aside. If it is in the parents have a much larger protection on it because you have other things going on and you have other kids. So you take that data for what you will, okay? 529 plans. Do you know, students, any of you have 529 plans? A college savings account? It's actually a parent asset, which is a benefit for you because then you're not reporting it. Sometimes when there's a withdrawal for college, then that might have to get reported somehow in the future, but not on your initial plan. If it's a grandparent that has a 529 plan, that is a grandparent asset. It is not reported for either the parent or the student because the grandparents own it. But again, a distribution from it may hit the next year's FAFSA. Some things not to include. This is mostly for parents. You don't include the value of your home. You don't include the value of your retirement account. You don't include the value of your life insurance. Last year, actually the last 2 years, I don't know if agriculture is, kind of in this area also, like in southern Minnesota where I am from, and they were requiring you to report your farm income and assets. I know, I was very sad because I was like, our kids are not getting any. They did change that, they reverted back. So if any of you students, your parents have their own business and they have 100 or less employees, they do not have to account that as an asset, whereas the last 2 years they did. They made a change, and I think they heard loud and clear that this was not a good idea and very much hurting a certain demographic of our families, and so they reverted back to what it used to be, which is they are no longer looking at farm asset if you live and work on that farm or small businesses that you own and operate, okay? So thankfully, they changed that back to what it had been prior. After you submit the FAFSA, you will get confirmation. This is what it looks like. You get like a summary report. You will probably just forward that to your parents just to tell them, yep, it's done. And then in there, you can see it's on the right. It's a little small. It says your student aid index. This is the old expected family contribution, EFC, if you ever heard that. This student aid index, that is the number that determines your eligibility for federal aid. Most institutions also use that number to determine eligibility for grants at their school as well. That, like MLC, we will look at that number, and that tells us, it's like a barometer. Okay, based on that number, you qualify for this much grant aid from MLC. Now, you may have your FAFSA completely done, and then you may be anxiously waiting to hear what your financial aid award is, and there could be a time delay between that, because if you remember, we don't require the FAFSA until April 15th. You can do it as soon as October, so that's a lot of time between October and April, so you might want to know sooner. When we get to the cost of attendance, you can do a financial aid estimate on the MLC website, or at another institution, it's usually called the net price calculator. And then that will give you, based on your FAFSA information, it will give you a general idea of what the financial aid award might look like. Okay, MLC, we use like last year's data, so it's very close to what it would look like when you actually get your financial aid award. Some schools, their net price calculator is maybe 2 or 3 years old data, so you just have to keep that in mind. But it's a really good gauge so that you can start planning to know what that out-of-pocket amount might be. So again, I'm going to say those words, net price calculator. That you can check. Every school is required by law to have a net price calculator, and so it kind of gives you an estimate of what costs might be. Ours is called a financial aid estimate, just because you can actually plug in numbers and it will spit out an example financial aid award. After this point, this is when your colleges or universities are going to start getting this information, and if they have questions about it, they're going to start sending you emails. So I don't know what your email inbox looks like. Mine got over 100 in the last week, and it's terrifying, but you need to check your emails. You have to. That is the only way some colleges will communicate with you, is through your email. Once you're accepted, some colleges will only communicate with you through that university or college email address, okay? So now is the time in your life to get very organized so that you can stay on top of those things. Because if they are waiting for something, it's just going to delay you hearing what your financial aid award would be. I mentioned that you're filling out information based on 2-year-old data, right? Your circumstances, your family circumstances might be different. Maybe there's a job change. Maybe there's a job loss. Whatever that may be, if you have special circumstances, you want to reach out to each school that you are looking at. MLC has 3 very specific things that we look at. One, sibling tuition. That's a big deal. So if your family is paying tuition for younger siblings, doesn't matter if it's grade school, high school, or technically if the family is paying for tuition at a college, that would probably count too. It's just harder to document because the school has to document this. So like if you are paying tuition at a grade school, the form would go to that grade school to confirm how much the family is paying for tuition for that younger sibling, okay? But that is a big one because that applies to a lot of our families, right? Maybe not if you, like, I know like school choice has changed this a little bit for the better. Come on, Minnesota, you can do it. Probably not going to happen, but that is something that you definitely want to pay attention to because it is a difference between being, like, it will shift what that student aid index number is based on this data, okay? If something happens mid-year, we still want you to reach out to us. We can still do a special circumstance review, even if it's mid-year. And then if you do have questions, you can certainly, if you have questions specifically for about the FAFSA, you can see there's information there. But pretty much if you have questions about any of this process, reach out to us at MLC and we can absolutely help you. Okay, so that's kind of the FAFSA overview. Okay, so we learned it's free. You need an FSA ID. It's 2024 tax information. Assets are of as the day you submit it. That's like the quick recap, okay? Questions before we move on? Isn't this exciting stuff? Oh, college costs, I know. Okay, cost of attendance. This is the last boring one. I mean, I don't know, maybe. This is important for you to understand how cost of attendance works, especially if you're looking at multiple schools. Are any of you thinking that you have like more than two or more schools that you're thinking that you might apply to next year? Anyone? Okay, a couple of hands. All right, this is important information for you because you are not going to be comparing apples to apples if you look at someone's tuition rate and then someone's tuition room board. You have to know what numbers you're comparing for your bottom line. Okay, so cost of attendance. I am using MLC numbers, so keep in mind that whatever school you're looking at might be very different. All right, so I know, this is 1 year. This is 1 year. Gone are the days that your probably grandparents had where they could work all summer and pay for a whole, or parents, right? Like that used to be a thing. Unfortunately, it is not. So you will see, I will also show you an example financial aid award so you can take heart. There's also hope. But realistically, you have to work hard to pay for college. You do. And it takes everyone. It takes not just you and your parents, but it takes our congregations, especially if you're going into ministry. Your congregations have an opportunity to support you in a really fantastic way that MLC will match, and we'll talk about that. But it really does. It takes everyone. All right, so you can see the top band there, tuition, food, and housing. It used to be room and board. Now it's food and housing. That is what is billed to you, the student, for 1 year, okay? And then you see that middle section, variable cost. MLC says the absolute most you should need for all of the other expenses is about $4,000. So what does that mean? That's like traveling to and from campus, right? That means snacks on the weekend. It means the toiletries you need, I don't know what kind of products you're using to stay clean and smelling good, but that's all part of those personal expenses, right? Supplies, books, all of that, right? And so that's where that cost of attendance comes into play. Now, realistically, $4,000 is going to be way more than some of you need. For some of you, that might be close. I don't know. It just depends on how often do you think. Are you going to fly to school? Are you going to drive there once a month? I don't know. Whatever you're planning. Is it going to be just for breaks during holidays? That changes that number. But you can kind of sit down and you can calculate what you think you will need for your personal cost, and that would then change what the overall cost of attendance. So on this slide here, this variable cost. So you could do the math. I teach organizational and personal finance, which is a math class at MLC. So I know you have personal finance here. Is it required? No. Okay. It will be next year. Okay. Oh, she just dropped a bomb, y'all. Okay, all right. So then that's going to make my job really interesting because we'll see where there's overlap. But so this is what I would have my students do. I would say, take that $4,075 and let's divide it by the number of months that you're in school, divide it by 9, and then if you really want to get granular, you could divide it by 4 to see how much you need per week, but I think you're going to find that's way more than you need, right? Unless, I realistically, it depends on your habits as well, right? And once you start, having to fund other things, all of a sudden your habits might shift just a little bit. And if they don't, they will after class with me. Just kidding. So this is the slide that I like to remind you that your cost could be different than the published cost of attendance. But that cost of attendance, you need to understand for all of the schools you're looking at. So the next screen looks a little crazy with the colors. But this is just showing you, if you're looking at 3 schools, they have very different cost of attendance numbers. That student aid index, that number stays the same. So what that's showing when it puts that SAI underneath X, Y, and Z, it shows that for school X, you would have a much greater need, so you might qualify for more need-based aid at that institution. So those of you who raised your hand and you said, I'm thinking of maybe 2, maybe 3 different schools, don't just count one out because of the sticker price being really high, because they might also have deeper pockets with more financial aid, if that makes sense. And so you just want to make sure that you understand, though, at the end when you're comparing your financial aid award, what are you comparing it to? Is it your build cost, or is it your cost of attendance? Is it including some of that personal expenses as well? Hopefully I didn't lose you in the weeds there, but it's just really important to know what numbers you're comparing. Ideally, instead of cost of attendance, because you can figure out what your own cost would be, always find tuition, food, and housing costs for every school that you're looking at. Because if you can have those two numbers, then you know you're going to be comparing the right things with all of the information. So this is teeny tiny print, but you can maybe see it on your printout a little bit better. This is an example financial aid award for, I would say, a typical MLC student, but this is an MLC student that received a full Pell Grant, okay? So that means that the SAI is coming in really low, which means that you qualify for more aid, okay? So in this example, with Pell Grant, MLC Grant, merit aid, so grades matter, they do, because that's free money. It's brain money, really, right? And your Congregational Partner Grant program, so if your local congregation can actually double that amount because MLC matches it. If you look at that, that's over $17,000 in what I like to call free money, right? Because this is grants and scholarships. That leaves a deficit of 10, which is still a lot of money, but that's totally doable. Totally doable between you and your parents, because half of that could be in a student loan. So automatically, that is aid. So I like to mention that. So federal loans is still aid because it is given to you as part of your financial aid. But then now you're down to $4,500. And in a summer, you might be able to do that. If not, you can get close and then do the rest in a part-time job. It is doable, okay? So, which brings us to this: how do we pay for college, right? My favorite line, and eventually I'll probably have to stop using it because you'll probably roll your eyes. But the best way to pay for anything is with actual money. So earn some. that's one way. But realistically, you need all of these things. You need financial aid. You have to apply because you don't know what you will receive. And it could change from year to year because behind the scenes, they sometimes change the formula a little bit. They tweak here and there. So you really should be applying every year for financial aid. This is now the days of hanging out by the lake. I don't know. You can still do that after work. You need to be working. Realistically, I have seen students. Horror story of the past, the highest loan debt I ever saw. This would be it'd be like Cash Cab or whatever, when you answer this question now, throw out something. Highest debt that I've ever seen at MLC. What do you think? Throw out some numbers. 30 grand higher. 60. What'd you say? 100,000, very close. It was like $95,000. Let me tell you what it takes to have $95,000 in loans. That takes not working, right? Because there was zero payments on the account. Also not qualifying for any aid, not getting any scholarships, doing a study abroad, and double majoring. It was like the trifecta of all things. Ouch. Ouch, right? Okay, but typically, here's the silver, I'll get to that. But our loan indebtedness at MLC is usually around 21 average. Average for people who borrow, so that is doable. It is doable. But all of these things matter. I do want to also mention student employment. Especially at MLC, people in the community love to hire MLC students, right? We have lots of jobs on campus as well. So realistically, if you want a job, you can have a job. Student employment is really what is referred to as work study. I just don't really love that verbiage because people think that means they get to work and study simultaneously. No, we have a work study student, but she's like helping me create crazy things for our financial wellness program. Like that's, she's working, but it's called work study because it is offset by government. They pay a portion of it and the school pays a portion. And the benefit if you qualify, whether that be at MLC or any school, if you qualify for that, it's not income that you have to report on the FAFSA. So that's a really great advantage of student employment if it's work study. Okay, so these are like the 3 columns, the 3 different ways of financial aid that help you pay for school, and we've kind of already talked about it. Grants, that's based on that student aid index, that SAI from the FAFSA. That is what determines your grant eligibility. Scholarships are either based on like merit, so like your GPA, your high school GPA, or it might be an application, right? But it's something more. Right now, there is a huge trend of our donors wanting leadership and evangelism. So I think, do you guys have Project Timothy here? Yes, so those experiences, donors love that, and then there's scholarships for kids that have had those kinds of experiences. We have that at MLC too, but it's called Daylight, so I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It's very, very similar to Project Timothy. MLS, I think you have something similar, but I don't know what it's called. Oh, there you go. See, you guys know. Project Type. Yes. All right. And then the last one is loans. Yep, this is a reality for many people. There are some students who are able to get through without any loans, and that is an amazing thing. But like I'm a survivor of student loans. Paid mine off. It was great. I did celebrate by getting a really big pumpkin shake from Culver's because they're so good, right? Okay. It was the fall, apparently, when I paid them off. So let's talk a little bit of details about scholarships first. These are our merit scholarships. So there is nothing that you have to do for MLC merit scholarships. We look at your high school transcript and we give you money based on your GPA. You don't apply, we look at every student and we do the work. Consequently, we will also do that. Subsequently, that would be the right word, every semester thereafter, so for the next year. So maybe, like senior slide was a real thing, and you're like, oh man, I didn't get a merit. Yeah, I'm seeing some heads, right? But then you're like, oh, but that's free money. I need to get my act together in college. Yes, we will look at it your sophomore year, your junior year, your senior. You don't have to do anything. We will look at it for you, okay? That is very unlike most colleges. Most colleges, you have a one-shot chance, and it's as an incoming freshman. And if you don't get it then, you don't get it consequent years. So that's kind of the cool thing about how we treat merit scholarships. For MLC-specific scholarships, there is a place on our website. The application dates are usually they're due on Monday. If you're watching and you're a current student, get your applications in. But they are due Monday, and then there's some that are due in the spring. There's also some that our donors have set up that are just happening behind the scenes. And if you qualify, you might get a notification, hey, you've just received this wonderful scholarship from these people. Please write a thank you. Loans. Okay, so the important thing to note about loans, these totals are government made. They are the same whether you go to MLC, Yale, or community college, right? You get $5,500 as a first-year student. You get $6,500 as a second-year student. $7,500 for a junior or a senior, okay? These totals are the same. Doesn't matter where you go, it is the same for every student based on your credits and what level you're at that school. Some of you, I don't know, do you have AP classes? Yes. Yep. So if you're transferring in some credits, if you happen to come in at a higher level, you could be it's based on your credits, right? So that's what determines the grade level for these amounts. Now, if you see that middle section, that says subsidize. That means the government is subsidizing that loan for you. They are covering the interest while you are in school. That's the amount that is truly, truly need-based because it is not accumulating interest while you're in school. That's the maximum, and that is determined by the FAFSA and that SAI number, okay? But otherwise, if you don't qualify for subsidized loan, anyone who does a FAFSA can get the $5,500 as a first-year student, and it will be part of your financial aid award. Some colleges, also check this out if you are looking at different schools, some colleges and universities will also include private loans as part of your financial aid. You don't have to take it, but you want to really be careful when you're looking at your financial aid award to see, is it all free money? Is it free money and loans? Is it free money, loans, and then loans plus? Because that's what I would call a private loan. That's like a loan plus, because there's more things. You need a co-signer, and the rates could fluctuate. So, the general rule, file this away. Do not borrow then more than your first year's gross salary, right, or income. This doesn't matter any field you are going into, this stays, right, this concept. So keep that in mind. Now you can see on the right, I have the base salary, and some people are like, oh, $32,000. That's just the base salary. That does not include your housing allowance, which is usually, you can see in the fine print, either anywhere from $11,000 to $24,000, depending on where you live, right? If you are in rural Wisconsin, is going to be a little bit cheaper than living in Miami, Florida, right? So the cost of living is going to fluctuate based on that. Okay, so when I say do not borrow more than your first year's gross income, I don't even want you to take out more than your base salary, but you actually do have a cushion. But you physically can't take out more than $32,000 in federal loans, because if you go back, look at the maximum, $31,000. That's the most you can take out as an undergraduate student for federal loans. So if you're thinking of double majoring, that number plays into your totals. Because if you take out the max each of the first 4 years, guess what? That's $27,000, so your fifth year, you would have only $4,000 eligibility. Just doing, see? You didn't even know this was going to be a math lesson. Just sneak it in there like that. All right. So I mentioned our average at MLC, 21,184 if you want to be. So this is the average for students who borrowed. I don't know, do you guys have a stats class here? Yeah, anyone in it? Statistics, it's interesting, right? I could sway that number by telling you the average of all seniors, right? And then it would drop it even lower. But I'm telling you the average of those who borrowed, because I think that's a better number for you to understand. I'm not including the people who didn't borrow is what I'm saying. So there could be a lot, the zeros that I add into that would shrink that even more. But it's important for you to understand that's the number of students who borrowed loans, that's the average, okay? You can see on the right, this is an example repayment calculator. So this is showing if you took out the full $27,000 or the bottom, the full $31,000. Here's the thing to keep in mind with these numbers. This is assuming if you had unsubsidized loans, you are paying the interest while you are in school. Otherwise, your payback number would be bigger, right? Interest makes things grow. But that's still it's a lot per month, but it's not forever. And it's not, this changes some of your options, right, of maybe some things in the future, but this isn't debilitating, right? This is doable. So those of you who are like, I don't want to ever have to take out a loan, if you do, it is okay. And ask me about it. And we can talk through strategies to pay it, even get that number lower, but it is okay. But does it change things? Absolutely. I would love it if everyone could graduate any college that they want debt-free. That's just not a reality. Whew. All right, so that's the heavy one. Like, how do I pay for it, right? Biggest thing is like you got to be looking at what are the deadlines, and the deadlines for application and the deadline for different scholarships, they might be different, and they might be different at different schools. So you really I would have kind of a college planning calendar for yourself that you put important dates on there so that you know and don't miss anything. On our website, we have a section, and it's for planning for college while you're in high school, and then there's a little link that I kind of highlighted there, and it's a really good timeline of what you should be doing at what point to kind of keep you on track. It actually starts as I think a freshman in high school, but you guys can just fast forward and start focusing on the senior year. My passion is that people understand that they can use their God-given gifts anywhere you go. So if you have questions, even if you're not planning on going to MLC, please reach out. I'm happy to help you navigate some of this stuff because it is tricky. Yes, so I mentioned financial wellness. This is really this is my heart, is for financial wellness. So I teach a course, I have a program on campus, and it's really truly all about stewardship, but not just give your offering, right? It's about managing our finances, but managing our time. It's so much bigger than that. So that's kind of this is my passion things right there. That's our theme for this year, Dinosaur, your financial stability. So every year the students I didn't make this up, so you can blame my sophomore student from class because he got the most votes. But they kind of direct it, and I just kind of help facilitate. So that's kind of that in a nutshell. So any one of us in the financial aid office can absolutely help you if you have questions. So Annette Schultz is our director of financial aid. Valerie Beauvais, we actually call her the financial aid guru because she pretty much does everything else. And then myself. On teaching days, it might be a little hard to catch me, but on non-teaching days, if you need something, reach out. Questions? The glazed over look. It's okay, I know, it's a lot of data. Just process it. But realistically, in this time of your life, don't forget to pray about it, because it's really easy to say that, but I'm telling you, the Lord will direct your path. He truly will, whether it be where you go to college, how you will finance college. Don't forget that very important thing, because it makes a huge difference. Okay.
Thank you so much for coming and visiting us here in Watertown. Enjoy the rest of the time. I hear you're here with your family. So enjoy that time and safe travels back to New Ulm. Everybody, that is it for this evening's presentation. Feel free to stop by and see me with any of your college questions or needs as well. Thank you.